The Nova is a small class of research-oriented starship which entered service with Starfleet in the early 2370s. The ship began its life as a much more militant design, with early studies for what would become the Nova being developed initially for the Defiant project. The ship measured in at 221 meters, was 103 wide and 45 tall. Armed with Type 10 phaser arrays and photon torpedo launchers, the ship was armed only to defend itself and lacked the capacity for sustained fire of a proper warship. The vessel had a crew of around 80 under most situations, with half of them being mission specialists. However, a crew of up to 120 could be embarked if the research mission the ship was on required a larger team. The ship's small reactor limited her to speeds of around warp factor 8, a civilian model being used to lower the costs of the vessel. Although the Oberth-class science ship was clearly showing its age by the 2360s, and had been for several decades before then, Starfleet had been unwilling to introduce a replacement, preferring instead to simply refit the Oberth with as much new technology as possible and spend the resources on larger designs. By 2365, however, it was becoming increasingly clear after a series of accidents and losses that the Oberth was simply not up to the challenge of existence in the increasingly hostile areas the ships were operating in. This was still likely not enough to convince Starfleet of the need to replace the Oberth, as, after all, ships were lost every day on the frontier, and against the needs to quickly expand the fleet and develop counters to the Borg collectives. Even planetary exploratory command's direct requests to develop an Oberth replacement went unanswered. Unapproved, that is, until it was suggested that a replacement could be produced easily by using off-the-shelf components and rejected designs for the Defiant project as a basis. Moderate armament and durable shielding could also be added on to permit the ship to act as a patrol ship or escort if needed. The project began officially in 2367, and work concluded the next year, with Nova-class ships entering service by 2369 and production continuing onwards. The Nova class had just a brief period to serve in their intended scientific and survey role before the outbreak of the Dominion War in 2373. The class served initially in quiet parts of the Federation away from potential danger, spending the majority of their time in a single star system where they could spend months at a time observing and exploring every nook and cranny of every planet, moon, asteroid, meteor, or other location in their chosen star system. With the outbreak of the Dominion War, Starfleet suddenly needed large numbers of cheap escorts, not scientific research ships. As a result, the Nova was repurposed into a convoy escort, the Batch 2 Nova. This design had most of the scientific facilities removed, new sensors, shielding, armor, and weaponry added. However, the reactor would remain unchanged from the Batch 1 versions, as greater power or speed were deemed unnecessary in what was intended as a convoy escort. During the Dominion War, very large numbers of the Batch 2 Nova were built, and they would prove to be useful and highly capable escorts for the convoys of merchant and supply ships which kept the Federation war effort going. While many vessels were lost to Dominion raiders, the convoys they protected got through more often than not, and they protected their charge as well. With the war's end and a desire to return to the peaceful exploration which Starfleet has historically been known for, the Batch 1 Nova was revisited, and a Batch 1B design entered production in 2377. These ships featured improved scientific facilities over the Batch 1 ships, but were otherwise very similar. Today, the various versions of the Nova serve in multiple roles with Starfleet, and will likely continue to serve for many decades to come, giving good service in that period, no doubt. While it experienced a convoluted development, began life as a warship, was converted to serve as a wartime escort, and only served intermittently in its intended role, the Nova class has proven to be a capable, sturdy, and well-designed starship in keeping with the latest traditions of Starfleet's long history of ship design.